Hello, and welcome to Brand Clarity by Visions2Images, where we focus on strategy and business development for entrepreneurs at all different levels through branding and digital marketing techniques. Susie Liberatore is the founder and art director of Visions2Images Creative Services, LLC. For the last decade, she has personally been instrumental in bridging gaps between the global digital market and neighborhood locations for some of the biggest brands around. Growth is possible for even a single location with the right professional branding techniques and Susie's signature strategies of Visions2Images. Stand out from your competitors and bring your visions to life while watching your sales skyrocket. Your host for this is Susie Liberatore, owner of Visions2Images. Hello, today on the podcast, I have Stacy Swift with Franchise Matchmakers, and she is a franchise broker. I'm excited to have her come on. We're going to talk about the Franchise 101 basics. Welcome, Stacy.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Tell me first, there's so much misconception as we were talking. What is a franchise and kind of like, where do people get these stereotype things? During the pandemic, there was so much talk about, I want to support small and local. And then what ended up happening is people were bashing franchises because they're not locally owned and operated in Facebook groups. And I was like, hold on, no, they're locally owned and operated. They're great in the community. So tell me kind of like, what is your take on what a franchise is?
Well, a franchise it's a type of a business model. So you're buying into a system that is proven, that has, they have a track record. They've done it. So you're not starting from scratch. A true entrepreneur may not be a good fit for a franchise. If it's got to be their idea and they have the knowledge and the ability to build a business like that, that's great. But many people coming out of the corporate world who've never owned a business before, and this is kind of a new venture for them, a franchise is a great model because it's your business, you own it, but you've got somebody holding your hand, and there's a system to follow. It's kind of a roadmap, if you will.
Yeah, I love it in a sense because people like you can have their hand holding, but they're still their business owner, right? Like they're not starting from scratch. As an entrepreneur myself, I know that I've had to make so many decisions, so many mistakes, all of these pieces and components. And when you get into a franchise, you get all of this extra added benefit with it. So I love that. Why do people typically get into the franchise industry?
I think really just because of what we just talked about, that it's most of the people I work with are midlife. They've been in the corporate world for maybe 20 years, 25 years. They've either decided they want out or the corporate world has decided they want out. Their job may have left them. So they're looking for something different and wanting to take control, take charge. And a business is a great opportunity, but they don't have that true entrepreneurial ability to say, well, I'm just going to go start something from scratch and hope it works.
Right.
So they look at franchises because, again, that system, that structure, that support. I hate to use this phrase because you've heard it a million times and it's overused in the industry, but you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself.
Right. No, I like that. I think that's true. And I think to that point, as far as I know, working with franchise industries, they have support. Like a lot of times when they do marketing, they can go back to their marketing and corporate and be like, hey, what do you think about this? Or they can guide you and help you in that sense. I know so many people have that support, which is great, but then they also hire outside or internally. There's so many great benefits to it.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. So many people think that, franchising is so strict and it's black and white. You have to do everything they say. That's not really true. There's flexibility in a good franchise system, and they actually look for the franchisees to provide input and come up with ideas. Maybe they'll try something new. You can't go add burritos to your menu at McDonald's, but if you had an idea for a product or something that you thought you might want to try, you can take that to the corporate headquarters and say, could we test market this? Could we try this? Look for input. So that there's some gray area too.
Yeah, no, I love it. That's perfect. So what would you say? Well, first, let me ask you this question. What is a broker? So you're considered a franchise broker. What is a broker? Tell me more about that for people who might not know.
Well, we're called many different things. Franchise brokers, franchise consultants, franchise advisors. Right now, I'm a member of IFPG, the International Franchise Professionals Group, and we have about 600 concepts in our inventory. So I help my clients find the best concept for them. If they come to me saying, hey, I want to own my own business, but I don't know what, we're going to do a pretty thorough interview and kind of figure out, what are your skills? What are your goals? What are your interests? What are your financial capabilities? And then help them find concepts to explore that kind of fit them. And when they make the decision, it's a free service to them. We're like a recruiter. So the franchisors pay us to help bring, new owners into their system. It's a win-win-win.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I mean, I obviously I kind of know all about the brokers, but I'm curious because so many times people come to you or me and they're like, hey, I want to do something, but I don't know what. And it's perfect to kind of make that introduction.
We get a lot of people who say, I want a Chick-fil-A or I want a In-N-Out burger or something, just because that's what they've heard and that's what they know. And when you start talking with them or really start digging a little deeper, it doesn't fit them at all. They equate franchising equals French fries, and it's all about fast food. Showing them there are thousands of other opportunities that might be a better fit for you. It's really eye-opening.
Yeah, I love that you touched on that because I remember when I started talking to like my business associates and I was like, oh, I'm going to niche down to franchising in marketing. And they were like, oh, like McDonald's? And I was like, no, there's so much more to the franchise industry than McDonald's or Starbucks or all of these food restaurants, right? We're always associated with those, but there's so many more names. And I love that you talk about, finding something that they're passionate about because they have to enjoy what they do and they don't need to do Chick-fil-A if they just heard it from somebody, right? Like, let's explore the options. Let's look at all the good, all of the bad, and find something that's going to make you excited to do every day.
I think that's the key. And I'm going to elaborate on the passion, if you don't mind, because I have kind of a different feeling about passion. I've done my own little video where passion, I think, is overrated. People think, well, I have to find a business that I'm passionate about. And I would caution you to step back from that. Why don't you find a business that will allow you to enjoy your passion? For instance, I used to own handyman franchises.
Okay.
I am not a handyman. I am not passionate about the handyman business.
Right.
But I knew that was a good business. It was a needed service. I knew we could, with the system and model that I was a part of, we could do it better than what was out there. And I could build that and grow it and allow me to do the things I want. The example I always use is, because this was a real client who came to me and he was passionate about golf. Mm-hmm. So he wanted a golf store. And the more we talked about it, I asked him and said, well, gosh, so if you own a golf store, do you think that means you're golfing every day? You're probably behind the counter selling golf products to your friends who are out golfing all day. And does that feed your passion? Mm-hmm. And he thought, oh, yeah, no, that's not. So find the business that is a good business that you can get excited about, certainly. Right. And grow and do what you need to do with it, but then it allows you to go enjoy your passion.
No, I think that's interesting. That's a good point to put out.
Hey there, I want to interrupt this episode with a quick message. If you're listening to this podcast episode and want to learn about branding your franchise or small business, then go to brandingbridge.com. That's branding-bridge.com.
So the next question I have for you, and I'm going back to stereotypes again, is people think, oh, it's so expensive to buy into a franchise, right? So do you often get that kind of pushback?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think people are surprised sometimes when they find out that the investments can be very reasonable. It just really depends on the business. If you're looking at something like a McDonald's or something with a fixed retail location with a lot of build out and inventory and equipment and signage, of course it's more expensive. But look at the home services industry, senior care industry, some of those that maybe can be started from a home office, maybe with very few employees. Those are much less expensive to get into, and your overhead is much lower. So yeah, I think it's very surprising when people think, you can get into a good business for even, $150,000 or less, and if you can qualify for a loan, you need, maybe 25% of that out of your pocket.
Right. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions that people, I often hear, and even working with franchisors and franchisees, they're always like, well, we were really close to getting a deal and then the finances came in. And it's one of those things where it's better to know now than later, I guess, but they get stuck and they're like, well, I don't know if I can afford that. I don't know if the loan's going to go through, like all of these little things, right? So it's like, that's why a broker is so important, is because you can kind of pull those pieces apart before you get really far in the process and then have to pull out.
That's a good point. I mean, that's one of the first things we talk about is, what are you comfortable investing and where is it going to come from? And then maybe it's a good idea for you to talk to one of my lending contacts, let them explore. What are your options? What could you do? That way we know before we start getting excited about businesses, what they can afford and what they can't afford comfortably.
So my last question for you is kind of about marketing. So what is the number one tip that you would tell somebody in the franchise industry to do for their marketing?
Kind of broad, but I would say do it. I think, again, that's a misperception that so many people think, well, the franchise they do all the advertising for me, right? And no, they don't. That's your role as the franchise owner. You have to market locally. And I think that comes from the system also. Every business is different. Is it direct mail marketing? Is it internet SEO type of things? Is it local networking? Is it mailing out coupons and whatever it might be? But you need to figure out for that particular business, what have they proven works? And then you need to get out and make it happen and do it.
I agree. I mean, I'm going to agree with that 100%, especially because corporate can give you all of the marketing tools you need, and they can still be posting to social and stuff. But when you have a local story and you show up locally, you're going to get way more traction than anything else. And that's kind of why we are so involved with the franchise industry, because there's just so much opportunity there. Getting involved with the community, sharing the stories. I work with franchises that have been around for 20 plus years, and they're like, yeah, I love hearing my story over and over again, and the community loves it, and they've been so supportive. So I am a huge preacher of local marketing, etc., whatever that looks like for you.
Well, and I hope you would agree also that it's, people tend to cut back. They're afraid to, nobody wants to spend money. It's like, well, I just invested all this money in this business. I have to get some revenue coming in before I can spend money. And that to me is the wrong attitude. You should have absolute marketing budget set when you go in from the get-go and spend it. Don't be afraid to spend it. It's the old adage, you have to spend money to make money. So you've got to get out there, and marketing's not free. You have to get out there and do what you have to do to make it happen.
I love that. And so, figuring out a plan and strategy, all of those things for marketing is so important. It's better to start with something than nothing is what I tell people. And you can grow and blossom into something obviously more extravagant as time goes on, but you want to really make sure you got something going and it's strategized, because we can sit here and post to social media all day, but if it's not converting, it doesn't matter.
I agree completely.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your great insight on this. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
They can go to our website, franchisematchmakers.com. That's probably the easiest way. There's a lot of information on there. There's a funding calculator, so they can kind of get an idea of what they might be able to afford. There's list of different franchise concepts by industry, blog posts, tons of informational articles. It's a great resource, franchisematchmakers.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and it was great to chat with you.
Thank you, Susie. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody, for listening in on today's Brand Clarity episode with Susie Liberatore. 2 things. First and foremost, please, if you liked this episode, please subscribe and leave some positive reviews. Also, don't forget to sign up for Stop Sending Your Customers to the Competition and get my insider secrets to compelling branding that converts. You can find that at branding-bridge.com. It's a free workbook for you to check out right now. All of the branding techniques and strategies that I use for my paying clients.